You don't give a fuck when you land or not, just let him go. Don't worry about you, you're gonna be a shitty fight, but you gotta let punches go. Last round. You can't wait until they get, if you miss it, bang, go right back. And don't take 30 seconds to start another punch.
Alexander, I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody like me. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw, there's no one that can match me. My style is impeccable, my defense is impregnable. Look at that! Look at that combination! And the
I kept telling him he had no punch, he couldn't hit, he's swinging like a sissy, he's missing. Let me see your box. I hadn't started dancing yet. A tremendous sensational first round, and Hearns gets hurt. Hearns got stunned. Pacquiao was stunned early in the round. Great first round. Incredible. Perhaps one of the best in middleweight history.
That black guy, he hits hard.
Fire!
Oh, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hands of Fire Boxing Talk. I'm your host, George Dampier, writer and reporter for RealCombatMedia.com. And today, we're going to have a nice little run-through of lengthy topics, including Errol Spence's dominant performance this past Sunday on PBC over Leonard Bundu. Manny Pacquiao returns to training for his fight with Jesse Vargas November 5th. And some updates on the Golovkin camp as he prepares for his bout with Kell Brook. And also Shakur Stevenson's loss and Claressa Shields' victory. And pretty much the, I say the bias of coverage and patriotism there. So it'll be a pretty interesting conversation to have, maybe a little bit debatable. But, like I said, first things first, we're going to do with the most recent. Errol Spence Jr., who scored a 6-round knockout over Leonard Bundu, the 41-year-old Sierra Leonean. I'm not sure how do you make a plural sense of those people. Not, God, now I'm sounding other. But you know what I mean. I don't know how you would differentiate that. Point being, he being Errol Spence now is the number one and mandatory for Kell Brook's IBF 147 title. Errol Spence looked extremely impressive, and he let it be known that from the very beginning of this fight that he wanted to make a performance to outdo Keith Thurman, who also fought Leonard Bundu, fought to a decision win, and pretty much carrying on the string of knockout victories, and an impressive one, also including a impressive performance, because while, yes, he's not fighting anyone of note, he is pretty much at this point in time. He's pretty much been fighting guys to see where he is at his career and just how good he can look. And he's pretty much passed all those tests and questions with flying colors. Again, he looks extremely strong. He's pretty damn fast. Not defensively savvy as many like to perceive that he is, but he still passes on that. But where many people have a question on Errol Spence is what he does with a fighter that is going to be throwing power shots back, including myself. Now, I was always a little bit skeptical of him, just because of it was here a rising name, and does all the attention. Is it worth mentioning? Is he worth the praise that he's gotten so far? I like I said, I was skeptical, but I can see him doing pretty damn good in this division at 147, which is one of the key questions I had off this topic. Is he a threat to the 147 champions now? Now, he's clearly made himself a top contender through all the titles across the board. And actually, believe he's actually number 3 under Timothy Bradley, which, speaking of Timothy Bradley, what a fight that would be, Errol Spence and Timothy Bradley. Now, that would definitely, if he doesn't land a title shot for the IBF and, say something were to happen, which you can't really even put it past in this sport, if he couldn't land a title shot, Timothy Bradley would definitely be a true indication of what Errol Spence could be in the future. But other than that, I have him up there. I definitely see, without a question, I see him getting past Danny Garcia. And that really goes more to how I feel on Danny Garcia, which it's not really much. I do not feel like he is. I feel like maybe he could be maybe at least the top 3 or 4 of the 147-pound division. But with the partial exit of Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, while many names are there, all of them are just about floating at the same skill level. There's not one guy that really just stands out among his peers. And with that being said, I think Errol Spence could definitely set himself apart taking on these guys. I see him getting past Danny Garcia. If he doesn't get by Keith Thurman, which I think he also could beat Keith Thurman as well, who Keith Thurman on his behalf really hasn't looked too great of late when it comes to fighting top tier opponents as well. But that could be say the same about Errol Spence. So that's what I mean. I can't really make a definite position on, or at least a decision on who wins between that bout. But I would definitely favor Errol Spence. And like I said, Keith Thurman, just, you go in life and death with Sean Porter. I don't know. But I think he's definitely in the position right now, Errol Spence is definitely in the right position now for the right opponent, at least to be named as someone who could be the top 147-pounder. And in my opinion, at this moment, Kell Brook just has a little edge over these 147-pounders as the best welterweight out there right now. That's just my opinion. And unfortunately, all I can really base that off of is the Sean Porter win. Like I said, Keith Thurman had to go life and death with that man. And the funny thing is, who's out of this conversation is Manny Pacquiao, who I'll be talking to not talking to, that'd be pretty cool, but talking about in a little bit. We're seeing with how much he has left to offer, he really could probably still, in a way, he probably still is the man in this division. So, but that's going to take a couple fights to establish that. Now, just to wrap up things with Errol Spence and, what he at least looks like going into the future, he's definitely going to be moving up, I say, within the next 3 or 4 fights. This guy looks huge. But he is like a jacked dude. Like, when you see him like train, man, he's. It's easy to think that he's just like a little skinny guy, like mildly toned out and just getting his knockouts over just being a power puncher or whatever. But he's really strong too, and I think that's what kind of gives a certain benefit when it comes to like a Sean Porter. I would think he'd handle Sean Porter pretty easily, but. And especially with Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman is because that he, along with the stylistic boxing style, he can also put forth some good string of power shots to get, and he's really fucking strong. So like what I mean, that's what I mean. I think he moves up eventually. Now, that kind of goes to another point though, is as far as his skill and greatness can go, because while that can kind of set you apart in 147, I don't know what that's going to be like for him at 154. He's not going to be. I don't think he's going to be able to bully guys the way he seems to be doing at 147 that he will at 154. Like, these guys are borderline middleweights already, which I think for most of these guys, like Jamal and Arizlan Lara, these guys are, I would think, essentially are middleweights. They're just reluctant to move up at the current moment. But yeah, there's a bigger guys, and I'm not sure how Errol Spence would really hold out with that. But that being said, I could see him even beating a Liam Smith right now at this very moment, even though he probably won't hold on to his title. So with as far as his popularity goes, as being a star maker, he's going to need to have a champion, or at least someone like a Canelo Alvarez, take a risk on him to do so. But speaking of star-making ability, it was announced just, 2 days ago, that the viewership for the PBC ratings on that Sunday was 6 million views, which is the highest number of views that PBC has had since, its highest rating ever, since I believe its launch in 2014, if I think correctly, with Keith Thurman and Eddie Guerrero. Holy shit, with Roberto Guerrero. So yeah, he's on his way. Now, some are going to put in question the Olympics, but nonetheless, if you still got people to still sit through it, that's something nonetheless. I mean, it's Sunday afternoon. It's impressive. Give the man his props. And so, I mentioned how Manny Pacquiao's, relevancy to the welterweight division. He has began his training yesterday for his bout with Jesse Vargas November 5th. He has started his training, of course, in the Philippines with Blue Boy Fernandez. And there was a couple videos out of, pretty much him just doing some shadow boxing, pad work. And that's why I mentioned him before, and with the Errol Spence, and at least as his place among the welterweights, is because, like I mentioned before, he still seems to have a lot to offer. And with the caliber of fighters that are out there right now, I don't see why he doesn't have a place or a stake in any of those conversations to be better than any of them. Like I said, I at this very moment, Danny Garcia would want no parts of that. He's very smart to, one, make up a rumor about having a fight with Manny Pacquiao, and he's right for, two, creating the hypothetical no, or hypothetically not fighting him, because it would be all bad news. He'll take your title and pretty much lose your relevancy to the 147 division. Even though for some reason, I don't know what it is, Danny Garcia has some type of, I would say, like a small popularity crowd. It's, of course it's something to build on, but definitely a lot more than any of the guys that are in the 147 division right now. But yeah, there's not really much to talk about with as far as Manny Pacquiao, but just the news being out there that Manny Pacquiao has begun his training for the November 5th bout, and he's already looking pretty damn fast, which, once, at least if that goes, then it's probably definitely time for him to get out of there. But on to Golovkin, who's, quite a few headlines that's been coming out of Golovkin. For starters, he held his media day yesterday with a good friend of mine, Chris Alexander. You can go to his Facebook page or his Facebook and Instagram. I'm not sure, maybe his Instagram, but he definitely got some footage over there and some photos with the champion. Sent me some videos. I had posted some myself on my Facebook page of just Golovkin, man, looking strong, man. He looks in definitely good shape. Friend Chris was telling me that just following the guy and covering him was tiring alone in the altitude of Big Bears, where he's currently training at right now. He's getting into preparations for his bout with Kell Brook on September 10th. And this was, I guess, and for, considering what, the least level of Golovkin and what he means to the area, it was it's kind of a small attendance for a media day. But it's very inclusive, and that kind of seemed kind of cool. Definitely to build up a relationship with the fighter, which I think, Chris is definitely getting good working relationship with the Golovkin camp. And, it was pretty awesome to have, something like that. But Golovkin will be preparing to leave next week. Was it the September 3rd, before he'll head to England and, do his last little fight week over there in London, which I'm just hype alone just for what that whole atmosphere would be. I would love to just be in the O2 Arena for just how lit that shit would be, man. Like, imagine just Golovkin on the way to the ring, a Seven Nation Army playing, a crowd just going nuts. Because, they're huge fight fans. And while they're, of course, definitely partisans in supporting their compatriot, Kell Brook, there are also quite a few realists when it comes to who's going to be the winner or who's the more impressive fighter. So I would think they would definitely have a good appreciation for Golovkin making his way to London and to really show out. And I think... Well, I guess this kind of includes into the following topics I'm about to pull out of these Golovkin headlines. Was, of course, Eubank Sr. and Carl Froch, have been in the news making comments about Golovkin as far as them just not being impressed and their displeasure with the opponent that Golovkin chose into fighting Kell Brook, obviously a 147-pound champion. But, it's... I find it just hilarious, for one. Just for the fact that these two in particular are being so... one, they're always going to be opinionated, but just one that are so critical. Because both of these men had an opportunity, well, not Senior, but Froch in particular had an opportunity to fight Golovkin. And while he's very disappointed and doesn't consider Golovkin a top 5 pound for pound, which is fine. I'm not going to, go with you back and forth on that. Because for some, Golovkin hasn't fought enough. But like I said, to me, dominance matters. But Carl Froch had the opportunity to fight Golovkin, but he decided to retire. Golovkin even considered going up to 168, which is some other fighters are having a problem to have him agree to. Froch had the opportunity to do that, and he decided to retire. Eubank Sr. got into a spat with his own promotion team of just how illogical and unbelievable demands that he was asking for his son to have a fight. And now he's expressing displeasure. That's utterly ridiculous. First of all, like, and Billy Joe Saunders kind of infused his way into the conversation just because of, while also responding to Eubank Sr. He kind of tried to bring, Senior back to earth. He's like, look, your son is just a British champion, okay? He's no world champion. He's not even a continental champion. He's not a European champion, okay? You're asking for, all these demands that you are in no right to ask for. If anything, Golovkin's doing you the favor to bring all this your way, all the attention, and it's basically a way of, and another way of pricing yourself out is just being you're working your way out. Because in no situation would that ever happen where the C side, and that's truly what a Eubank Jr. and Golovkin fight would be. It would be an A to C level fighter. I mean, if I'm generous, a B level fighter. And the B minus fighter is trying to get A plus demands. I mean, this is shit that even Golovkin wasn't considering. What, the commentator, who comes out first, money demands. No, I give you an offer and you agree to that shit. You have no say on what's what you're entitled to. It's utter nonsense. And Saunders, like I said, pretty much brought him back to earth, told him, look, stop talking shit to get your son talked about. Because now, and think about that now. Senior now took his son out of position of a headlining major payday fight. And, in this boxing scene article, it's headlined Eubank's frustration. And that's truly what I think it is. It's just he's so frustrated now because now who's he going to fight? Some guy named Tommy something. I can't bring up the article right now, but it's now he's out of position where he could have got himself such a good fighter. And even if he lost, which is the same that are people saying with this Kell Brook fight, is even if you lose, you still get that fame of already fighting Golovkin, or even though you're just looking better than some, you lose out of that, and now he's going to have to settle for another low-level fight where he's probably expected to win and doesn't look that great doing anyway. So Golovkin's response to this is, he takes it on the chin. He laughs it off. But more notably, he says, pretty much just saying that, Froch and Eubank Sr. are just among another list of fighters that, that like to talk but never actually settle the things in the ring. The main thing to really take out of it is his last quote was, this is not serious. This is like clowns. Everyone says, I want to fight you, but not next. Maybe 5 years later. Just so true. It's like, how do you even take yourself serious as a fighter that you got another man punking you out for glory? Like scratch the finances to what these big fight brings, but just other than your career, this is like when Danny Jacobs says he wants to fight in 2 more years. Who the hell says that? You already had a break in your career, which, with all due respect, that's, totally fine. And you had to take care of his health, which is most important. But, none of these guys are in position to just wait it out. I get it. What, you think Golovkin's... And if that's here, I think that's what they're trying to do. Is trying to have Golovkin get old, slow down, and then beat him. Why would you want to deteriorate your own victory like that? Manny Pacquiao can't get the due respect for beating Oscar De La Hoya because of how advanced in age he was. Say that he was drained out, but people, always forget that it was Oscar De La Hoya's game plan was to come in skinnier than what he could have or should have because he thought he'd have an advantage in speed. But Pacquiao can still not get the credit for that because of an advanced age. So why would any other fighter want to have their opponent aged out into some type of advantage in a victory? It doesn't make any sense. You lose so much credibility that way. And last topic, and I hit at this toward the beginning and tail end of last week's podcast. I talked about Shakur Stevenson, who I felt was a good fighter, very well-rounded, good shoulder, good kid, but with the influences that were around him and the buzz that was coming in around him, I was slightly worried about what that would do to him. This past Saturday, he lost his gold medal match to Ramirez of Cuba, who was now a two-time gold medal champion, who also won in London in 2012. So there's nothing really totally bad to take out of that. I would imagine Ramirez turns pro later this year following that. I believe Shakur Stevenson said he wants to do the same. But through this fight, it was clear that Ramirez won the first round. The second round was a little bit closer, and but I would think, the generalship and more clean punches went to Shakur Stevenson in the second. Now the third round was very tight because while a lot of guys had not clean looks, but I would say Shakur was moving pretty well, as far as trying to dictate his space and the activity that Ramirez was trying to put out, but not really landing cleanly. Neither was Shakur Stevenson. So it was pretty damn even, and I was coming to the final minute of the round, you were like, well, geez, I hope somebody just decide, like it was from that point, from the last minute, it was really just up for takings. And clearly, whoever just put up the more activity from that point on would win the fight. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on where you're from, it was Ramirez who definitely got it out there and, definitely pushed the pace and got the win. Now, many were, at first, some people were skeptical on the decision, saying, Shakur was robbed. But there was such an overwhelming majority of people that were just like, no, and saw it the same way I did. It was pretty evident. I don't think it was so disputable that people would think that, there was a robbery there. Clearly, he didn't do enough in that third, and the judges saw it the same way. Shakur Stevenson was obviously broken up about it. As soon as it was announced, he kind of, it was almost like a delayed reaction for him. He smiled at first, like, oh man, they did me wrong, and then then the tears started coming. He had the jersey over his face. He kind of subtly shook the hand of Ramirez and just really tried to take off. Like he didn't want to be seen, and had an interview right after, which was kind of like the worst thing for him at that moment, where he just broke down and couldn't really even answer any of the questions. Said he couldn't bear losing. He thought he should have did better and make it cleaner, but he did admit that he lost a fight. But yeah, man, he was clearly devastated by that, and it's fucked up, man, because I literally talked about this 2 days before that. I was like, why are we giving him putting this much attention toward him and this much accolades, but he hasn't done his biggest job yet. He was fortunate to get to the position that he was even in the first place, because had, a shitty decision not being made, who's to say that he would have beaten Michael Conlan, who was the number 1 seed into that weight division? So I felt everything was very premature. And now he's kind of falling on the backlash of that, of people who, you know, who are always going to be skeptical on his attention that he got, and we're saying like, oh, look, he's a little crybaby. See, he told you he was a hype job, da 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 da. And so there was a backlash of that, and which went totally under the radar. It was not really under the radar, but nowhere near the attention that Shakur Stevenson had gotten before he even won anything, was the fact that Claressa Shields, our gold medal champion from 2011, repeated her victory for gold the following night. And while many former USA amateur boxers gave her praise, you know, Terrence Crawford, Andre Berto, Andre Durrell, Andre Ward, you weren't really seeing that much through the boxing world, or that much adulations and love that Shakur Stevenson was getting. And I think it was just pretty fucked up how that just wasn't consistent. So that's about it for me. I mean, I was debating this a lot with some guys in the group I kind of have a particular stance with, or at least where I'm more consistently at, is Ring IQ. Shout out to Ring IQ Boxing Group. That's usually where I, you know, throw down my opinions. But it's time for me to close things out. You guys tell me your opinions on at least where you think I stand on some of these issues. Comment in the box below. Comment on the shared link for this video. And just let me know what you guys think. So until next time, keep your hands up.